Chapter 22. Puppet Show. Hey, what about all the other fucking people? I was actually surprised when the door opened without a hitch, as the wood around it looked all rotten and decrepit. From there, we were all too happy to retreat away from the galloping gorge into the safety of the cave. Presumed safety, anyway. Who could say otherwise in the equestrian wasteland? We all piled in quickly, shutting the rickety old door behind us. It wouldn't stop any of those eels looking for a quick snack, but we were rather hoping that they were dumb enough not to know the difference between a wall and a door. Speaking of doors... Well, do you think we found the right place? Cobalt quipped, pointing at the large gear-shaped stable door directly ahead of us. The door was all but identical to Stable 84's, right down to the weathered finish. The only real difference was the number slapped onto it. The entranceway was also predictably sealed up tight, the control panel sitting idly nearby. I wordlessly took a few steps forwards, eyes on the control panel as the others moved to follow. I prayed to the goddesses that the door didn't require a specific password, or we were pretty much screwed. Well, there was only one way to... I stopped dead at that sound, and it took me a good few moments to realize that it had come from under my own hoof. And now that I thought about it, I was standing on something unusually hard, and with a jagged edge or two. Lifting my hoof to the side, I peered down to see what I had inadvertently trodden on. What in the... I levitated up the object, twisting it left to right in front of me as I looked it over. After what we went through 6 days ago, there was no way I'd ever mistake this thing for anything else. It's a bit of a carapace, I informed the others.
Do you think other changelings have been here?
Altrix asked, though her voice betrayed how unsure she was of that assertion. I wouldn't think so, Cobalt stated. You're the first changeling to leave that stable in 200 years.
Right. I guess so.
Stripe walked up next to me, giving it an examination of her own. It looks to be from a rad scorpion, Stripe noted. Long dead, one would both presume and hope. Think another big one made this place its home? I asked her. She looked away from the shard, giving the cave itself a look over. Possibly. It must have been long ago. Any tunnels it dug in and out are long gone. Well, let's hope it didn't leave any descendants, I said, throwing the shard to one side. Come on. I trotted up to the control panel, giving it a look over. It had a keypad and a screen blinking idly, awaiting input. I ignored both for the time being, igniting my horn and pulling down the lever to activate the stable door's mechanism. The panel gave a beep, and text rolled out on the display. Stable door manual lockdown. Stable tech pip-buck verification required. Not a password? I wonder. I yanked out my pip-buck's utility cable, locating the correct socket on the panel and plugging it in. My pip-buck screen flickered briefly before going black. Then, after a moment of waiting, rolling green text began to scroll faster than I could read. I only spotted bits and pieces, but it all seemed to be technical crap that would mean nothing to any of us, barring Cobalt. The text stopped, and another moment passed us by. Then the alarm began to sound, the door's opening sequence activated. I disconnected my pip-buck from the control panel and stood back, flattening my ears to protect against the deafening noise echoing throughout the cave. The mechanisms inside the stable entrance shrieked and grinded, the agonizing sound mixing in with the constant alarm. And then, with one final screech, Stable 77's door was dragged into the entrance and rolled aside, the alarm ceasing a moment later. What was within was definitely not a stable full of dwellers. As we gingerly stepped into the ancient fallout shelter, we observed the rust-covered walls all around us. Old refuse covered the floor, many of the lights were broken, and old Stable-Tech motivational posters were either torn or had decayed into illegibility. Not only did it look trashed, but it reeked of mold as well. From the moment we walked through that massive door, we knew there would be no life here. Altrix shrunk down, looking the most disturbed out of all of us. Stripe trotted over to the changeling as we stood in the entrance, placing a comforting yet questioning hoof on her shoulder.
Sorry,
Altrix sniffed.
it's just... This looks like home. Home, if something really bad happened.
The residents may have left a decade or two after the bombs fell, Cobalt noted, examining a busted box of electronics on the wall. Some stables only remained closed for 20 years or so, before opening up to populate Equestria. They would have been better off staying put, I mused, walking up to a window to the right of the room. Peering through, I could see an equally decrepit security checkpoint inside. They may not have had an orchard, Cobalt pointed out, and only enough food to last so long.
A stable without an orchard?
Altrix muttered in disbelief.
Why would they make one like that?
As I said, some stables had been intended as early efforts at repopulation, Cobalt reiterated. Some were more inclined for the long haul. I bet your queen chose the latter on purpose. I know which one I'd have wanted to be in, but more to the point. You think their water talisman will still work after all this time? I asked. Cobalt frowned. Hard to say, but easy enough to find out. After a quick examination of the room, Cobalt walked up to a lone water fountain sitting in the corner by an overturned table. His horn ignited, and he pulled the lever on the fountain. Water began to flow, flawlessly drawn away down the plug hole as Cobalt observed with a hum. I didn't even need asking. I moved over next to him, lifting my pip-buck up to the stream of water. There wasn't a sound from it, not even when I experimentally put my hoof into the water flow. No rads, Cobalt noted. I'd say it's working. Well, that was a good sign if any were to be had. Unless the water was just, by random chance, really clean here despite it all. But I went with the talisman explanation because the other one would be really unfortunate, both for us and the Equestrian hive. There was also still the issue of the collapsed catwalk behind us, but that just meant there was only one way for us to go. The door into the rest of the stable struggled a moment before sliding open. The place still had power, clearly, but the lack of maintenance was making me a little nervous. The hallways of the stable were in just as much of a sorry state as the entrance. Rust covered every visible sheet of metal. Wires hung from exposed conduits. Many of the lights were busted. The list of issues was through the roof. And something else that was off about this place? This was a really long corridor, leading in just one direction. Sure, there were twists and turns, but the only other door we'd seen since leaving the entrance was a random closet with busted cleaning equipment inside. It wasn't like it was stretching for miles and miles, mind you, but I counted 2 right turns and 3 lefts without a single branching corridor. After the first left turn, there'd also been a set of stairs leading downwards, but that just eventually led to the second right turn, which then left to the second left. It was only after traversing that final corridor, passing by busted old ventilation units hanging from the ceiling, did we actually come across another door at the end. Atrium was marked above the door, and it slid open easier than the last door we had passed through. The room was as huge as the atrium I had seen in Stable 84, though didn't seem to have an upper floor. As we wandered in, we could see a door to our right that was marked as the cafeteria, though the window was obscured by blinds. To our immediate left sat another entranceway marked as the living quarters that had a window blocked off in the exact same way as the other one, while at the far end of the room sat a second door on both the left and right hoof sides. One was marked as reactor, while the other led to the Overmayor's office, of which I could see the circular window directly opposite where we walked in, just one floor up. As for the atrium itself, it was almost entirely empty, except for a single central table, on which sat an old metal crate and some dusty holotapes.
So, this is a little creepy.
Altrix muttered.
The stable feels wrong.
I feel it too, Stripe concurred. The design is strange. The unusually long walk from the entrance to here. No branching paths, and what appears to be a single bedroom. This place is far too small for a stable. They had a point. And if the only other room beyond here were the Overmayor's office and the reactor, something wasn't right. Stripe, Altrix, check the living quarters, I told them, and they gave a quick nod before moving towards the door in question. I turned to Cobalt. Check the cafeteria. The talisman will probably be down by the reactor, he noted. Yeah, but this place is bothering me too. I want to make sure we're safe before we go exploring any further, I rebuked. Stripe's right, it's too small. Yes. No way this place could hold a viable population if this is all there is to it, Cobalt mused. There's not even an infirmary. Tell me about it. I was doing my best to ignore the weird itch in my mane and the chill running down my spine. So check the cafeteria. I'll see if those tapes over there can shed some light on this. All right. Scream like a filly if the ghosts attack you, Cobalt said, and he is so fucking unfunny, screw you! With him off to probably think up more of his famous remarks, jerk, I trotted towards the table and the holotapes. First, though, I was very curious about the crate. The lid was already half off, so it was easy to brush it aside and take a peek in. Why would a fallout shelter need puppets? I mean, I'm sure the foals would enjoy them, but seriously? There were 3 inside. A dog, not a diamond dog, just a regular dog. The second was an old mare. She really didn't need the years of neglect to look aged. And the final one was, well, it was the strangest, but not because of its looks. The final one was a puppet of Princess Celestia. And the weird part? It looked like it had been slashed with a knife several times over, and the puppet was in tattered pieces. The main body was full of gashes, while the head laid on the entire other side of the box. Some pony apparently didn't like the goddesses all that much. Or maybe it was just Celestia? A Luna fan, perhaps? It still seemed weird. And more than a little sadistic. If a child did this, they were probably future Raider material. Perhaps the audio logs would provide some answers. There was quite a few, though some seemed damaged. I popped the first one into my pip-buck and listened intently, keeping an eye on my EFS just to be safe. Where are all the other fucking ponies? A male voice cried out, sounding like they were in the midst of an emotional meltdown. Oh, dear Celestia. It all happened so fast. The sirens and the green mushroom clouds coming from, I think they hit Manhattan. I could see it all the way from here, and it wasn't alone. The panicked stallion took a deep breath before continuing on. When I got to the gorge, the bridge had been locked down. Ponies were trying to get to the stable, but they were only letting admitted residents through. I was let right on in, given a stable jumpsuit, and then shoved onto the catwalk. I chose to fly down. It was easier than walking on that rickety thing. He was a Pegasus, then? Goddesses, did the military back then really stop all those ponies from getting in? Damn. Can imagine many of them went with the bridge when it collapsed. But when I got in, the door just shut behind me. And there's no pony else here. It's just me. And I don't think there was ever meant to be any pony else. Stable Tech, you fucking monsters! If you're listening, rot in hell, you bastards! There's also this box in the atrium. The only thing in here. I haven't opened it yet. The log ended, and I was left with my jaw on the floor. Only one resident? On purpose? Why? Why the hell would any pony want to do that? What was the point? I slipped in the second log and let it play. There were hoof puppets in the crate, the stallion announced. 4 of them. Celestia, an old mare, some random dog, and the stable cult. Why would they... Oh, forget about those things. I've been in here for days and I've heard nothing from the outside world. The door won't open. The door controls say that it'll only open in 5 years or so. What am I meant to do for that long? The log ended. I had so many questions building up. Who was this guy? What happened to him? Why did Stabletech build a one-pony stable? Where was the 4th puppet? The chill grew colder, though my EFS remained clear of all but my friends in the other rooms. The next few tapes were busted, so I shoved them to one side and put in the next usable one. The 5-year mark arrived yesterday, the Pegasus said in a depressed voice. Bye, Luna. That was the biggest scorpion I've ever seen. It had just been sitting there, right by the stable door in the cave. I'm trapped, with no weapons to speak of. Just when I thought I was free. There was silence on the tape for a full minute, and for a moment, I thought he had just wandered off and let the tape run. But I was sadly proven wrong by an unhinged giggle that sent my stomach plummeting. Oh, Reverend Hound, even you couldn't take on that thing, the Pegasus said as he giggled to himself. No, we need you here to protect Granny. What's that, Princess? Oh, don't mind Stable Colt, you know what he's like. Yes, Princess, I'm sure Reverend Hound will keep an eye on him. Oh, he is mischievous, isn't he? Oh well. Me and my friends will just have to see if the bug thing moves on. Once again, the log came to an end. Just... What the actual hell happened in this place? Looking at the other holotapes, all of them were busted except for 2. I shoved all the broken tapes in the box with the puppets, leaving me with the 3 I'd listened to, and the 2 others. Taking a breath to calm my nerves, I hesitantly slotted the second-to-last tape in my pip-buck. Oh, Celestia. Why did we do that? Stable Colt and I... We killed Princess Celestia. Took a knife and cut her to pieces. Oh, when Reverend Hound finds out... The Pegasus took several deep breaths, nearly hyperventilating. I could relate at the moment. We need to leave. That scorpion thing is still there, but we killed once. We can do it again. The log ended, and I didn't even take in a breath as I switched it out for the final tape. We're back, a far, raspier voice said, taking a moment to cough sickly before continuing. World's gone to shit, hasn't it, Stable Cult? Oh, we met some bad ponies, but Stable Cult and I killed them. We did, didn't we? Ripped them apart with our hooves. Rip, rip. Oh, fuck me. Think I spent too long out there, though? The pony said amidst a wheeze. My skin and hair's been falling away, but Stable Cult says it suits me. We've locked the others in the crate. They won't bother us now. Stable 77 is ours. Our little slice of the apocalypse. Ours. Ours! That was it. The final tape. What the hell was that? Bloody hell! God, I hadn't even heard Cobalt return from the cafeteria. He nearly gave me a heart attack. I glared at the stallion, my heart racing 50 miles a second. On his part, he just gave me a dumb, deadpan look. Ugh. I wasn't serious about the ghosts, you know. Piss off! I spat, quickly trying to collect myself. It's fine. He probably died of radiation poisoning not long after that last tape. His bones were probably in the living quarters. So, mind explaining? Cobalt asked. Right, hold on. I took a final breath, feeling my nerves calm a little. Basically, Stabletech had this one guy living here all by himself. He went nuts, talked to puppets like they were people. That's all.
That's horrible!
Altrix said in horror as she and Stripe returned to the atrium.
Why? I thought stables were meant to protect ponies.
On paper, they were, Cobalt muttered. Stripe frowned at him. Cobalt, do you know something we don't? Cobalt winced, and then sighed. Not for sure, or at least I hadn't. But for a long time, there have been rumors that most of the stables held experiments, social experiments that were thought up by the company back before the bombs fell. It's why so many stables failed to save their occupants. I'd been unaware that so many had failed, as he'd put it. That was rather disturbing. Like zebras and ponies in a stable split in half, Stripe muttered bitterly. Of course. Though I doubt the pink cloud was part of their intent. Stable 3 was probably testing to see if ponies and zebras could live in peace after we'd blown each other up, Cobalt noted. Rumor has it that Stable 101, where Red Eye hails from, was designed for Earth Pony supremacists only. There are more rumors and tales like that, and I fear that many of them are true.
But...
Altrix whimpered.
My stable doors malfunction?
Cobalt bit his lip. It had crossed my mind that it might not have been a malfunction at all. Yes. And you never thought to mention this before? Stripe growled. It was a rumor. I didn't want to mention something that could have been an old pony's tale. So some pony and stable tech tried to steal away the hive forever. I interrupted them before the argument could escalate. But we saved them, and we're still saving them. So let's get the talisman and get out of this house of horrors. I did recall Scootaloo not being overly fond of Queen Chrysalis. Cobalt shook his head and headed off in the direction of the Overmayor's office. Hold that thought. I need to check this out. Check what out? If I'm going to find out anything of these experiments, it's going to be on the Overmayor's terminal. Great. I really was not in the mood for side quests. But he seemed pretty adamant, so I just groaned in exasperation and followed on. It was a good groan, too, so I think he got the message. Not that it slowed him down at all. The door led to a staircase heading upwards, and it was only a single flight to get to the office. The door was already open when we arrived, and boy, did the room look ransacked. I guess the Dweller decided to get back at Stable Tech by trashing their room. The lockers had all been dented by multiple bucks and knocked over. The computer monitors in the back of the room were all smashed to bits. The officer chair had been thrown at the window, and the desk seemed to have been used as a toilet at some point. The terminal, however, seemed to be mostly intact. The good thing it was one of those near-indestructible models. Cobalt planted himself by the computer, moving to the login screen. Huh, he murmured. Seems the Dweller here never got access. I guess not every pony is, what was it you called yourself that one time? I asked. A data analyst, Cobalt answered. It's my job back at 10 Pony. Right, that. Cobalt rolled his eyes, tapping away as he began his hacking attempt. Enjoying yourself? We all froze at the raspy voice coming in through the intercom. I responded smartly. See this, stable cult? A shrill giggle assaulted our ears. They think they can walk into our home unnoticed. Bad ponies. And a filthy stripe, too. How about that? What did he call her? Stripe seemed unfazed by the comment, I guess since it was her alias and all, but the way he used that word just made my blood boil. I have no idea what that bug is. Oh, it doesn't look like a nasty scorpion or a nice ant, but all the same, you need to die. All our heads turned in unison as the doorway shut tight. I ran over to the control panel, pressing the button to open it up again, but even when I pressed it a second and third time, the door didn't budge. Sleepy time, my little bunnykins. A foul smell attacked my nostrils, and then it became decidedly more difficult to breathe. Gas! Cobalt shouted, his horn alight as he placed a shield over the ventilation unit in the room. Bastards trying to gas us! Too bad there were 2 ventilation units. Well, that buys us some time, I stated appreciatively, but we need to get out of here now! Stripe pulled out her rifle and took aim at the circular window. The bullet hit the glass, but it failed to shatter. Bulletproof! She shouted in alarm. Crap! Even with just 1 ventilation unit, the gas was already burning away at my throat and lungs. It was like some pony was feeding me hot coals, but there was nowhere for me to get fresh air. My friends, too, were feeling the strain, coughing violently as the gas threatened to overwhelm us. Cobalt! Teleport us! I shouted. I could barely teleport with you 2, let alone adding all tricks, Cobalt rebuked. And I'd have to drop my hold on this other vent. We'd suffocate quicker. He was worried about this now? I mean, it's not like there was any other... What was that? I trotted over to the window and looked out into the atrium. And there... Was this stuff making me lose my shit, or was that the Raider Pegasus from the Megamart? She was walking into the atrium like she owned the place, giving the place a casual look over. Fine, plan B. I began knocking on the window as hard as I could, and it seemed to do the trick. The mayor looked up at me and tilted her head in question. I made a throat-slitting gesture and then hastily pointed toward the door, repeating the process and hoping that it would sink into the head of a random visitor. She looked off to the side and then wandered out of view. "What are you doing?" Stripe asked as she caught Ultrix, the changeling seemingly a second or two from passing out from the gas. "I either just asked for help or made a death threat." God, as I hoped I hadn't made a death threat. "Cobalt, if that didn't work, we need you to try that teleport." He gritted his teeth. "All right, give me a moment. When I release this vent, we're not going to have long before we all lose consciousness. Whatever, just do it!" Cobalt didn't answer, instead closing his eyes in concentration. I moved in close to Stripe and the barely conscious Ultrix, praying that Cobalt could find the mana to pull off this mass teleport. Oh, come on, it's just one more than in our town. He could do it. He had to. Then I heard a hiss as the door slid open. "You idiots coming or what?" None of us argued with the new voice, and Stripe hauled Ultrix up onto her back as we all made a bolt for the doorway. We threw ourselves out into the corridor, and then the Pegasus hit the button to make the door close again. Sweet, stale, but breathable air began to fill my lungs again. I just sat on the floor, taking in deep, wonderful breaths, even as my lungs still burned from that poison that had nearly killed us right then and there. The others had collapsed next to me, all taking breaths of their own. Cobalt was coughing violently, while Stripe continued to protectively hold onto a stricken Ultrix. My body was screaming for rest, and at that moment I wanted nothing more than to oblige. But there was still the matter of a crazed ghoul and the Pegasus looking down at us. And looking up at our impromptu savior, I had more than a few questions come to mind. But first on that list, why was there a knife stuck in the control panel? "So, you wander into freaky abandoned places often?" the Pegasus asked, leaning up against the wall as she extracted her knife from the panel. "Name's Moonblossom, by the way, but Moon is fine. Didn't get time to introduce myself after you blew the boss's head off." Scrap Heap, I responded, looking at the Pegasus in bewilderment. I shook my head, rising to my hooves as the sweet air continued to fill my lungs. Whew, this is Cobalt, Stripe, and Ultrix. My friends were all recovering at their own paces. Ultrix still seemed the worst off, though Stripe was steadily helping her come back round. "Well, you're a crazy bunch," Moonblossom commented, brushing her purple mane to one side as she gave us an amused smirk. "Guess we're even now, though. Like my hacking of the door?" "Huh?" "Door wouldn't open when I got here, so I hacked it," she explained with a shrug. "That was not hacking," Cobalt protested. She frowned. Yeah, it was. Got my knife out and hacked away till it had something important. Then it opened. Easy." I saw Cobalt's eye twitch in the corner of my own. Any further deliberation on what constituted as hacking was cut off when the turret emerged from the ceiling. Oh, come on! We jumped for it. The turret had just rounded on where we'd been sitting and opened up when we slipped away. As it went to reorient itself, I instinctively pulled out my combat shotgun and blasted it at point-blank range. Alright then, I had had enough of this. Stripe, Cobalt, stay with Ultrix while she recovers, I ordered, gesturing to the still quivering changeling. You, Moonblossom, was it? Want to help me kill a ghoul? She gave me a wide grin. Good to see we're on the same page, Hornhead. I will let that comment slide. I stepped over to the sickly Ultrix, hoping she would regain lucidity soon, and started off down the stairs with Moonblossom right behind me. We bolted across the atrium, opening the door to the reactor and heading inside. It was the only place he could be. There had to be controls in there he was using to mess with us. As if to confirm my suspicions, turrets descended all along the hallway leading to the reactor room. I entered Sats in a heartbeat, targeted the first 2 turrets with my shotgun, and unloaded into them. As they detonated, the others opened fire with fortunately low-caliber bullets peppering my barding and forcing me back out into the atrium for cover. Damn, that was going to bruise. But while they were all focused on me, Moonblossom leapt into action with a gleeful laugh. Unfurling her wings, I spied her kick off into the air towards the closest turret. There was a pause in the gunfire, and I used the moment to pull out my pistol and return to the hallway. Moonblossom was jamming her knife into one of the turrets, pulling out the poor machine's wiring like they were a pony's entrails. I targeted the remaining 2 turrets, opening fire before they had a chance to zero back in on either me or Moonblossom. They all exploded in a shower of sparks. I ran forward without stopping, trusting that the manic Pegasus would be right on my tail. I slammed my hoof into the controls for the next door to open it. The 2 turrets inside zeroed in on me. I didn't even think as I rolled behind some machinery, blindly firing my pistol at them, but without hitting anything. I was reading exactly 3 bars on my eyes forward sparkle, and the third had to be the Dweller. Moonblossom wasn't as lucky as I had been when she entered the reactor room, and her leather jacket wasn't as protective as my barding. A bullet immediately nicked her in the shoulder, the Pegasus giving a squawk as she fell to the side, behind machinery of her own, while unleashing every vulgarity in the dictionary. I levitated out a healing potion and rolled it towards her, which she took and downed in a second. With that done, I peeked over from my cover and gave the room a look over. The large reactor was sitting in the center of the large room, sparking rather dangerously. All kinds of other equipment and consoles lined the room, and in front of the central reactor was the main console, with the words Power and Water Talisman Control inscribed on it. Eureka! It was also then I noted an advantage to Moonblossom's big entrance. All the turrets were focused on her now, so I half emerged from my hiding spot and took aim on the first one. It exploded in a flash of flame. I ducked down again as the second turret realigned towards me, though Moonblossom used this opportunity to fly in for revenge. I did not envy that turret. Ours! Was all I heard when I got slugged in the side of the head. Where the hell did he come from? Oh, above me. He was a Pegasus too. This stable is ours! The ghoul had lost almost his entire coat, though a couple of green tufts could still be seen mixing in with his tattered brown mane. His eyes were a milky white, and upon his hoof was a stable colt puppet. He came at me, punching with the puppet. I ducked to the side, his hoof hitting the metal instead, though if that hurt him in any way, he did not show it. You won't take this place. No, he won't. Will he, stable colt? No, he won't, he said, using his free hoof to stroke his puppet affectionately. You know that's just a puppet, right? Moonblossom remarked as she lunged at the ghoul, punting him with her front hooves before stabbing her combat knife into his side. Ah! Lies! Falsehoods! he accused, taking the wound in stride as he hit Moonblossom in the face, sending her sprawling. "We'll kill you!" I scrambled to pick up my pistol again, though I was seen. The moment I had it, it was knocked aside as the Pegasus grabbed onto me and took to the air. I didn't know if he was planning on throwing me into the reactor or not, but I was not keen to find out. I grabbed onto his bony wing with my telekinesis, yanking it in a random direction and diverting our course. We slammed down into a large metal crate, and I rolled off and away from the crazed Pegasus. "No! No! It's ours!" "Come on! This is nuts!" I shouted at the ghoul, grabbing for my shotgun. "That thing on your hoof is not a real pony! You don't even have to stay here anymore!" The ghoul gave a feral scream and charged toward me with gnashing teeth. I pulled the trigger. He fell, his momentum carrying him past me and to a rough stop. And there he laid, his eyes looking feebly around as his movement became sluggish. I had blown a large chunk out of him. He was done for. Moonblossom trotted up next to me, hissing at a new bruise on her muzzle. "Ah! You get him?" "Yeah," I responded sadly. "I think I did." The Dweller's wing twitched, and he weakly brought his puppet up to eye level. He just laid there for some moments, fading away, humming some comforting song to what had been his sole companion for the past 2 centuries. We... Time to sleep, my little stable colt," he merrily whispered to himself. Time to sleep. I watched as his body went limp, the puppet sliding free from his hoof in his very final moment. And then he was gone, leaving behind nothing but a withered vessel that had done nothing but suffer since the moment that door had closed 200 years ago. You know something? I really hate stable tech.